Victoria Nuland, coup master in chief. Victoria Nuland, who has helped the United States through so many wonderful coups, through destroying so many lives. I mean, I wonder if the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that Victoria Nuland has helped kill over the years, I wonder if they're kind of looking down on her and applauding as she resigns, you know, cheering her as she walks off into resignation. But yeah, Victoria Nuland, who was very involved, most famously in the coup in Ukraine, has resigned, but she was involved. She advised the United States and was involved in multiple coups, but the one she was most hands-on with was the Proxy-War in Ukraine, the coup in 2014 in Ukraine, taking out a Russian favorable leader and putting in a U.S.-backed puppet. Ermate points out here that her replacement as Deputy Secretary of State is John Bass, a former ambassador to Afghanistan who oversaw the U.S. withdrawal from the country. Like Nuland, he's also a former aide to Dick Cheney. Really inspires confidence. But some people are pointing out that perhaps this means a U.S. withdrawal is coming in Ukraine, but I don't know if I'd put so much weight on that. I mean, let's remember that the withdrawal from Afghanistan was catastrophic in many regards, so it's not like it went smoothly. Either way, I don't know if we should read a lot into the fact that the person replacing her has been in charge of U.S. withdrawals in the past, but he's also been in charge or pivotal in so many of the U.S.'s war crimes over the years. As Aaron mentioned, a former aide to Dick Cheney. I don't know if you can think of any war crimes or anything Dick Cheney has been involved in. I can't think. Dick Cheney, he was vice president, right? I think he mainly just got coffee, right, for George Bush. I think he didn't he pick out some of the furniture, like the upholstery. I don't know if he actually changed the furniture, but he had some of the chairs reupholstered. I think that was one of his decisions. But no, I don't think Dick Cheney was involved in anything large scale in terms of harming people around the world and destroying lives. He mainly sat in the back and just kind of watched. But to go back to Victoria Nuland for a moment, many of you may have heard this, but I just want to remind everybody of the phone call that was leaked that actually proved that she and other U.S. representatives were involved in actually picking the U.S. puppet president of Ukraine after the 2014 Maidan coup. This is like in the days after. This is like immediately. And I'm just going to play a little piece of it. But this is her on the phone. And when she says Yats is the guy, that's kind of the key sentence. Yats is Yatsenyuk, who ultimately became the president of Ukraine, the U.S. puppet in Ukraine. Eventually, you'd see Zelensky run for office and win the honor of being the U.S. puppet in Ukraine. But anyway, this is a leaked or hacked phone call that she and the U.S. never wanted out.
Yanukovych is calculating on all of this.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, you know, what he needs is Cleach and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week. You know, I just think Cleach going in, he's going to be at that level. Working for Yatsenyuk, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Okay, good. Well, do you want us to try to set up a call with him?
Legitimately, they're selecting the next president of Ukraine after the U.S.-backed coup. Now, let me also remind everyone that the New York Times just the other day, this coup took place in 2014. This is when the U.S. really put this whole proxy war game into high gear. This is when they really were able to get their tentacles into Ukraine and force Russia's hand in myriad ways. But just the other day, and I covered it on this live stream, just the other day, the New York Times finally admitted in an extensive article that the CIA was heavily in Ukraine starting at minimum in 2014. Starting at minimum at the time of that coup. Now, it seems quite evident that CIA and MI6 were there before 2014, but at minimum, the New York Times has admitted that starting in 2014, you have CIA bases in the forests on the edge of Russia, in Ukraine, in the forest, on the edge of Russia. And in that article, the New York Times also admits that those CIA bases, it admits they were arming and training and funding Ukrainian forces in the forest on the border of Russia. It also admits that they were training guys, Ukrainian spies, etc., to go into Russia and perpetrate what have you. In this New York Times article, which is, you know, the liberal view of the world, they're admitting everything that we've been saying for years, that we said, oh, it seems like Russia's invasion was somewhat provoked. It seems like the U.S. in Ukraine. It seemed like NATO was expanding onto Russia's border. All these things that we were told, well, you're out of your goddamn mind. What are you talking about? What are you, a traitor? What are you, Putin propagandist? And now, after 2 years of the Ukraine proxy war, but again, going back many years before that, 2014 Maidan coup, after all these years, the New York Times is like, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, that happened. So that's a thing. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Are we getting apologies? Or are we going to get a retraction of all the stories you've printed that acted like either directly or ostensibly that the U.S. wasn't there at all before 2022? The U.S. had nothing to do with it. Putin's just a loony bin who just decided to invade somewhere because, you know, he was bored one day. He was throwing darts at a map and he said, let's invade Ukraine. So anyway, goodbye to Victoria Nuland, who has the blood of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, on her hands. And start scrubbing, Vicky. Start scrubbing the fingies, because that's not going to come out easy. Ask George W. Bush. He paints a lot, and many of his paintings are of him in the bath of the shower, because he's still trying to scrub the blood off, isn't he? Just ask that Freudian slip he had recently. I don't know if you can ask a Freudian slip something, but just look at that Freudian slip that he had recently where he said, invaded Iraq without any pretense or completely illegally. And then he goes, I mean Ukraine. Putin invaded Iraq without any, nice slip up there, Georgie boy.